It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month may have been in October, but here on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington, we're spreading awareness all year long. So joining us on our Positive Vibes Only segment this week from Toronto, we've got Dana Theriault, a women's advocate and empowerment coach, author, and breast cancer survivor. Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Renee. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so happy to have you here to share your story, your work, and all that you're doing. So let's go back to the beginning when you were diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 44 as a mother, and just kind of take us through that process of your diagnosis to becoming a survivor.
Certainly. So I was diagnosed, as you say, at the age of 44, and I had been to the mammography party for 20 years. I had my first benign left breast lumpectomy when I was 24. So I tell you this because it's unusual for women to begin having mammograms so young. I was really at the tender age of 24 when I discovered a lump in my left breast, and I followed up with it, and it was surgically removed, so it became a left breast benign lumpectomy. And so because of that, I entered into what I call the machine, the medical machine, where I was under careful and close watch every year faithfully for 20 years. At the age of 24 to 44, I had at least one mammogram a year, and typically two, because what happens with dense fibrous breasts is that very often the imaging isn't clear, so I get invited for a callback for what they call a targeted mammogram, where they look at the imaging from a different vantage point somehow, and they follow up that way, but nothing showed up. So at the end of the day, there was no early diagnosis, late detection. There was no detection at all for me with mammograms. So on the 20-year anniversary of having had my first mammogram at the age of 24, at the age of 44, I was diagnosed with advanced breast cancer that ultimately resulted in a radical mastectomy, and it was not picked up. It was entirely missed by mammograms. So that is the story.
Wow. And you were proactive. You were, after the age of 24, when you did have the lump that was benign, you were consistently getting checkups and things. But that's something that you talk about in your work is, check your girls, hashtag check your girls, and making sure that people are being very proactive. What made you make that transition? Because there are survivors that just go back to their daily routine, but you changed your life to help change the lives of others. Making that transition into co-creating Check Your Girls.
Well, you know what? It just happens to be, probably some divine ordering happening that my doctor, Dr. Véronique Desaulniers with Breast Cancer Conqueror, she invited me onto this project, so I'm very honored to be a part of her grassroots movement. So I have a wonderful doctor that invited me because the unique thing about the story that I have, everyone has a Me Too cancer story. Everyone's been touched by cancer. What's unique about mine is that it's just an easy tell. It's 20 years of being overscreened and ultimately underdiagnosed. So I was invited to be a part of the documentary and the promotional commercial. And you know what? I'm a big fan of Gloria Steinem, and she talks about, acts of rebellion. And I think it was just righteous anger and just an act of rebellion. I just thought, I lost a breast, and it doesn't have to be that way. I'm a mom of a little girl, so really, I'm really concerned about the next League of Ladies, and I just don't want this to happen to someone else. It's plain and simple. So I'm just in the mama bear mode, and we're all connected, so it's a sisterhood, and the whole thing about the movement, which I'm really proud of, and I'm just a part of it. I'm not the brainchild. My doctor really created this, My Breast Friend product, and in partnership with the founders of the MamaCare company, the MamaCare method. So I am really honored to be invited to be a part of the movement. Really, the hashtag Check Your Girls is a movement. When I say I'm proud of it, is that it's there's equality. There's none of this, wait till you're 50 for a mammogram. Across the board, as we're learning, as soon as a girl gets her first period, she can start to learn and discover her body, and that is true power. I really am all about agency advocacy, because the privilege of agency, putting, literally, science supports us to put the power in the flats of our fingertips for detection. We can take heart and take health in our own hands, and that's why I'm so grateful to be a part of this movement. So you're right. I could have gone back to life and business as usual, but I'm not the same. I'm changed, and it didn't have to be this way. And I really want women to know that mammogram is a single screening tool, no more, no less. Just to put that much power in an outside source is really, it's just not empowering for women. So I'm all about empowering women. So this is just the tangible, physical way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with that being said, you do have some tips. You have a book that you've been working on, but you also have some tips before we get into your book to help women in their recovery, and even also risk management and things like that. So what are those tips, and kind of how did you come about them throughout your journey to figure out, these might be the three of the best ways to help live a healthy life?
The tips to live a best and healthy life, it's really important. I have a lot of sheroes, I have a lot of mentors, and I really align with community. Because I'm such a highly sensitive person, the upshot to that is that I'm very receptive to positivity. So I really I took myself out of isolation. So aligning with the right community, Dr. Christiane Northrup says that community is immunity. So I really just sourced some good mentors that could help me out. So walking the cancer adventure can be a really a terrifying experience if you go it alone, and we're not meant to go it alone. So a big tip for me was finding a community of support that I really resonate with like-hearted women, and that really just changed a lot for me. And sourcing the right information. So I talk a lot about the difference between informed consent and empowered choice. Just because there were different services offered to us doesn't mean it's the right treatment for us. So really going into the wilderness, going into the research of what's available, and then being a woman of discernment, finding out what resonates as true and serving for you. And I think that's the most honoring thing a woman can do, to find out what is going to work for her. So that's been a big tip for me, just to really source the right information, because I can go into the sea of overwhelm really easily. So tipping it out of overwhelm into overflow and really just connecting with the right women, I think that's really important. So that's been a big part of my healing journey.
Yeah, now you talk a lot about, as you work with empowering women to you talk about owning their body and being comfortable with their bodies and learning, taking time to, as you mentioned, once they get their period, to make sure that they're taking the necessary steps to be healthy. What is your advice for women to make sure that they are being confident, owning it, and understanding that self-diagnosis, self-breast exams, things like that, those practices go such a long way, and it doesn't make you any less of a woman because you are taking care of yourself?
Absolutely. Does not. Negative. No less a woman for taking care of yourself. Really, it's everyone has a different word for it. I mean, you can call it self-love, self-care. I like to call it self-honoring. I'm all about honor, and that is really, I think, what it's all about. And the message that comes with it, too, growing up, I mean, we've been told to do self-breast exams, but how do we learn? Through paper, through a pamphlet? Doctors and clinicians and physicians don't learn on paper. They learn through a proper breast model. So that's the power of the product with My Breast Friend, is that it's something that it's tactical, it's tangible, they can learn with their fingertips. So really taking the sting out of it, because if you tell a young girl at the tender age of just a girl in becoming in her adolescence, she's not going to know what to do. But if young girls are encouraged to explore and learn the landscape, the geography of their ladies, what it's all about is learning what is normal and abnormal. It's really, the tipping point is just discerning the difference, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. The whole point of honoring the body, really, and exploring it through touch is the ability to figure it out. And we can't honor our needs until we know what they are. That's the crux of it right there. It's so great to say, take care of your needs. And everyone talks about the buzzword of, self-care. Take care of your needs. Well, a girl or a woman will not know how to honor their needs or do proper self-care unless they properly know what their needs are. And by exploring the body, by getting to know what the breasts feel like, then they can really think and feel, okay, this is just not correct. Worth checking out. So I think that's the first step. And taking the sting and shame out of it, because we would have, I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught how to do a proper self-breast exam. And even when I was in the medical machine of go home and watch and take care of your breast with self-exams, I didn't know what I was doing. So I think it's really proper now that we have the product, and now we can have the practice going forward. Breast are, Pinktober, October is 1 month. It's not a one and done with the mammogram. Mm-hmm. We have the power in our fingertips. I call it the proactive purple power, because the product is lovely and it has exact replicas of tumors that have been surgically removed. And we can do this practice all year long, at least once a month. And can you imagine how empowering that is for the next generation of growing girls to get to know themselves? I mean, I think it's wonderful. I'm a 47-year-old woman, and I'm just figuring it out now. I'm not dialed into my body awareness. I got the call because we had to invite it into this cancer community, but before this, I really didn't know what I was doing.
Right. And you make a good point. I mean, as a young girl, and even, regardless how old you are, we don't fully understand our bodies. We don't fully understand what's normal. The way that they teach you about self-exams is like very uncomfortable and awkward. And so it's hard to even understand, okay, what do I do and how often should I do it? So I could not agree more. Well, take us through your book, On Her Honor, Empowering Women and Growing Girls to Lead Brilliant Lives. And I can understand the inspiration behind it, but, for those that are listening, take us through, what the book embodies.
Well, I love that word embodies, because it's really, that's what it's all about. The whole coaching program that I'm doing with women's empowerment coaching is coaching from the body. It's different. It's not so much just about strategy. It's really from the body. For me, I've always been the kind of gal that just beat up on myself. So I've really learned, instead of beating myself up, I've learned to ease up and knowing what that feels like in the body. Am I in expansion? Am I in contraction? So really, this book is about learning the processes, and we're energetic beings. So I talk a lot about the energetic spectrum, because we all have an energetic signature in the body, and it's through the process, really. My proprietary process goes from identification, integration, and then innovation, because once we become in an empowered place, when we can sense that, when we really own our bodies and we feel very, we feel like we're operating at an optimal level with health and human potential, then we are in the position to make empowered choices to create. That's where the innovation piece comes in. So it's pretty simple, and it's distilling it. It's really drilling it down to identification, integration, and innovation, because really everything begins with identity. What do we identify with? And once we can trim the fat and really be clear on what we identify with, everything else is just noise. And for someone like me, I can my imagination can run wild. I mean, could be a Disney show myself. And really, it's just really distilling truth. And when we know what is true, truth builds trust. And then once we have truth and trust, then we can really triumph. So that's just, it's really keeping it simple.
I like it. That's you know, you're hitting on a lot of really good things that are not basic by any stretch of the imagination, because it's conversations that people do not have. You know, it's topics, it's areas, it's practices that we know we should be doing, we don't know how, or we know we should be doing, but, you know, as women, we don't do it often enough, you know, and so you're kind of consistently raising the conversation and the topics of what should be done to stay healthy and to make sure that you're being proactive. So, Dana, where can our listeners follow you? I know you just had a webinar that aired on Tuesday. Where can our listeners follow you along your journey and your work?
Well, I am very happy to be doing this radio show with Transformation Talk Radio called Lady Boss, and the series is Handle the Lump, Heal Your Life, because as women, this is what we do. We handle everything. So Handle the Lump is taking care of the cancer, taking care of the health matter, and then healing your life, really, that's where the transformation comes in, because handling the lump or whatever crisis that we're going through, that's transactional, getting her done, taking care of it. Well, healing your life is really where the change, innovation, and transformation comes in. So on Lady Boss program, I am with Transformation Talk Radio, and we air the fourth Friday every month. And I'm also very happy to promote the My Breast Friend training tool, which is www.mybreastfriend.com/Dana, D-A-N-A. That's the product, and this is the training tool, and it's giving the gift of health, too, coming up for the holiday season. It is just a fantastic gift. We don't know what to give, and we want to be purposeful, and everyone wants to be in the spirit of true giving, because so much has become commercial. And this is something that women may not spend the money on themselves, because we want to, prevention sometimes is not so sexy. Everyone goes in to do the Band-Aid. But really, there's nothing more powerful and potent than taking health in our hands and then doing it for our loved ones. We're often, as women, more apt to do it for loved ones. So, yeah, it could be a great Christmas present, too. So mybreastfriend.com/Dana is the resource tool that it would be wonderful to share this holiday season.
That sounds like a great holiday gift. I like that. Well, Dana, thank you so much for joining us in our Positive Vibes Only segment. As you mentioned, breast cancer awareness is more than just an October conversation. It's something we should be talking about all year long. So I appreciate you joining the show to share your story as well as all the work that you're doing.